as, so in coaching, they classify the coach as the coach, the person being coached as the coachee, they're called, like formally in coaching. So as the coachee, there is a bit of pressure because you can feel it being grilled if you're not careful, right? And that's why a couple of things are important. One is that you've got high trust and that the person knows that the reason you're questioning them is to help them, guide them and move them through the process, right? So high trust, solid relationship, secure, safe environment. The second is the contract. At some point, whether that's the start of the session or contracting your relationship, remember we said in the contracting stage, one of the contracting items might be, I'm going to be using a coaching style. So there'll be times when it might feel like I'm just asking you questions and not giving you any answers, but that's intentional to help you start to think differently, become more independent, and start to develop your own sense of, performance in your role. And once people know that, and you know that, and you're committed to it, those conversations become less pressured.
Yeah.
Because they're like, okay, this is part of what Ria said we were going to work on. That helps. You might do a mini, and if you're starting one of those conversations, you might do a mini contract at the start, just to say, okay, for this conversation, I think it might be useful if we use it as a coaching conversation. Is that okay? Yeah. So remember, I'll ask you probably questions. I won't give you any suggestions unless you ask me to give you suggestions. But otherwise, it's about helping you to come to the right decision point. Yeah. So it helps to frame it. I mean, they were okay, those things, because you knew you were doing it.
Yeah.
But with your teams, it might just need a little bit of a little bit of mini contract at the start. Good. What else did you so we've got on one side the coach does actually what feels like not that much work. You're literally just following the structure of the questions. On the coachee side, you've got a little bit of pressure, but that's okay. Hopefully that's positive pressure.
The whole exercise just puts a structure around it, rather than it just be kind of know in your back of your head where you're trying to get to and kind of where you're at and all this. Rather than just having like a conversation that can sometimes be all over the place, it sort of just puts quite a nice little structure around it. So you can see these different segments of it. In my head anyway, I found that was probably the approach.
Yeah, done 7 minutes.
It's almost kind of getting coach in to make their own, draw their own conclusions. You're all you're doing is just trying to steer them on, like you say, on the path a little bit to the point where they go, oh yeah, I could do this. Yeah, actually I could do that. Maybe I should do this. And then if you think it's completely off tangent, they're really like,
Exactly.
Why do you think that? Well, actually, that's actually something I thought about. That's a good idea. Let's give it a whirl.
Yeah.
One of the big things was just not putting in your own opinion.
Exactly.
Or drawing comparisons. Parallels or whatever. Stuff. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's the most challenging thing that I find is resisting the urge to do that.
Yeah.
Just go.
Yeah.
So I think if somebody caught me at a time when it's not a pre-structured meeting, a corridor conversation, that's when I would need to either suggest, why don't we set some time aside to get the right frame of mind rather than doing it off the cuff, because that might be more tempted to try and interject and speed up the thing and get to a conclusion. I think,
And there's no doubt about it. It takes a bit of reconditioning on yourself to stop making suggestions, because the reason you're enrolled, you're in, is because you've been good at what you did before. So teams you're managing are doing jobs you've done before. You're good at.
Yeah.
So we're not going, I'd say just do this, and it all sorts out.
Yeah.
You just got to stop yourself from getting into autopilot and be more conscious of right, I need to come right, okay, I'm not scanning here rather than normal and wet doing.
So it's taking that time to do that, because you coach them, then they'll just carry on doing that and they won't keep jumping up and down.
That's the thing. You will notice it's a bit of an investment up front, those conversations, but over the mid to long term, it really does create a different level of independence.
I think I might have mentioned in the previous session, I worked years ago, early in my sales career with a girl that every podcast call, the boss would ask a bunch of questions. You could have done 9 things, you'd find the 10th thing that you haven't done. But rather than take it as a criticism, it's like, actually, okay, that's a good idea when I do that. There was one girl that took everything he said, it's like, she just like me, hates me. He asks me the same questions every week, and it's like, he's asking the same question, be prepared for that question. Thanks for it.
Yeah.
Oh, he hates me, he's just trying to show me up in front of everybody. It was just like, well, he had a different style, it wasn't a coaching style, it was more of a come up with an idea or give you a suggestion. If you've done 10 things, there's an 11th thing.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, just how people receive it as well.
But I think that's a really good example because it links us right back to the importance of contract. That manager had a contracting conversation with you all to say that the reason I would ask these questions is to either help you focus or just to give you a bit of feedback on areas that perhaps you haven't thought about.
Yeah.
And there you go. Okay, right. That's why he's doing it. He's not doing it to undermine me or pick fault or to shame me in front of the group. Actually doing it for the benefit of us and business. Then all of a sudden everyone's clear and it works. Good. Anything else on that? Okay, good. So I'll encourage you to consider now every opportunity you have for coaching. So to John's point, you all kind of agree on it. The sooner you can start to do this, the quicker you'll build that coaching muscle. And it will just become a natural response to situations that come up. And as you start to notice it, notice where you will by default just give someone direction. Take a pause. Ask yourself that question, okay, how do I use this as a coaching opportunity? Sometimes you won't have to go all the way through the model. Someone comes to you with a like, I've got this problem. You might just need to say, okay, what do you think you need to do about it?
Yeah.
One of the things I used to say when I first started this was someone would say, well, what should I do about this? And I would say something like, well, what do you think you should do? They are, I'm not sure. I said, okay, what do you think I'm going to tell you to do? It's really interesting that because I said, well, you're probably going to say, do X, Y, and Z. Like, that's interesting because that's exactly what I was saying. Yes. And then you go, so which of those are you going to do? And you just coach.
Yeah.
And yet what's interesting is that person on the receiving end doesn't know, they don't always know you're coaching them. Just feels like you're having a conversation. But once you get intentional about it, the great thing is you can go to any conversation with anyone and feel confident that you get something as an outcome from it. Because they're the ones who do all the exploration, do all the thinking, and walk away with the ownership and action. And that's the beauty of it. Because your final question is always, okay, what will you do? How are you going to keep me informed? You're not then chasing. Normally you say, well, we'll agree that I'll check up with you, or I'll do. You end up with carrying the monkey yourself, don't you? Mm-hmm. And you don't want to do that. You want to leave responsibility firmly with the other person.
Do you see that way?
What's not working?
Yeah.
Let's focus on that.
What do you see? You might say, what do you think I see in that boy? Yeah, a rogue. Yeah, a bad influence. Who knows? Who knows? Right. Okay. Good. So. Just let the screen back on. Let's, I want to talk about development planning and give you a chance just to think about your structure for development planning. So, coaching grow model is in your toolkit if you need the reminder. Hopefully you've all got a picture of it now so you can keep referring to it. Okay? We've discussed this. This is the thinking for you to do after today's session. So remember that image. No jumping in. Which are the regular situations with your team where you need to stop jumping in to get some answers? Because there'll be a pattern. There was with me. There was a pattern of situations where I keep jumping in there. And so they kept coming back because it's easier to ask Justin than it is to just figure it out for myself. So just have that thought for yourself. Where am I jumping in on a regular basis? And how do I make the transition? We talked earlier about triggers, didn't we? Do you remember we were talking about the person who's overwhelmed and they go from I'm coping to this tips me over the edge and the trigger is I retreat. You'll have a trigger where someone asks you something and you tell them. So you need to switch your own trigger from telling them to hold on, wait, what's the best, and then ask question, coach. Yeah, that really help you and them. I promise you. They might not realise how much it's going to help them, but you will notice it. And before we go on to the final thing, and this is really worth remembering, is the way the brain works. Every time you get a mini success, something goes your way, you get a little win, or you solve a problem, or something, your brain rewards you with a little hit of dopamine, a little feel good. You've got to retrain yourself not to be addicted to that little hit, right? Because in the situation where you coach, you will, as you go forward from here, if you get this right, you will have situations in a week from now, a month from now, a quarter from now, a year from now, where you see your team succeed and you know you were behind it with your coaching. They will take all of the credit and all of the glory because they don't even know you were coaching. But you have to start to recognise that where you get your dopamine hit from now is their success independently in what appears to be without you. But you are the architect of it all, right?
But you must.
I'm gonna hold on. I didn't sign up for that. But seriously, that's what happens.
You must have team members that will know, that will look back and go, do you know what? I was here, and this guy, helped me to get to here. I wouldn't have got to there without their help and guidance.
Yeah.
Like a high performing sales team members will absolutely take the credit for this. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've had the situation, one of my high performing team members, we all had a great deal of support. Every single person here, obviously, I'm their manager. No, I don't sell like that anymore, but I'm removing every blocker. They don't see that. So my boss for Christmas gave us a bottle of champagne, was like, great working with you for the year, well done. It was under my desk and the high performer was like, you get a bottle of champagne, but I'm the one that makes all the money. Literally. And I was like, are you joking me? But you always have to like retain yourself from saying, remove this, remember that. It's like a whole list that just comes straight to your mind. So yeah, it's literally a thing.
And it's one of those things that we don't often talk about in leadership, but it's so true. You will be the architects of your team's success and they will take all the credit.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to recognise that actually where we get our sense of satisfaction from is knowing that we're the architect, knowing that we've empowered them, and from there, they're able to go on and do better things because of the work we've done with them. And we have to kind of almost lose the ego of, I did that, to just being proud of the accomplishments of our team. But that's okay, as long as you know in advance, and in your head, you're like, it doesn't matter, I get satisfaction from helping the team, making that a thing, then you're okay. But it does take a bit of time, and actually you will meet leaders or managers who can't do it. They have to take the credit, they have to jump, well, that wasn't you, that was me. Just, it doesn't get you anywhere. If anything, it builds resentment and does all your hard work.
Yeah.
So just let it be, see it's karma, and if you don't get your fancy in this world, you'll get it in the next. That's that coaching, honestly, ask yourself regularly, how do I keep strengthening the coaching muscle, strengthening the coaching muscle? It will pay you back tenfold, I promise. Okay, so that's the coach for change part of the process. Final part of the process, and we will revisit this in our future session, but I just want to kind of get to it today and then we can work out where we go with it. And then we will wrap up just before 3, because a few of you got 3 o'clock calls. So we'll be wrapped up by 5 to 3. So this stage, the H of the coach model, we're following the mnemonic, is heroes in the future. So a couple of things, right? There's this is a quote from Harvey S. Firestone, that the highest responsibility of leaders is the development of their people. That is the highest responsibility. So number one thing, over and above the results, is about developing the people, because then if you develop the people, they'll deliver the results. It's interesting because depending on what we decide to do, our teams will increase and raise or lower their performance according to your expectations of growth that you invest in. So if you invest in people's growth and you don't, then you become the performance enhancer or the restriction on performance as a leader. Difficult pill to swallow, that one, isn't it? But it's true, right? We are really instrumental in our team's performance as leaders. So one of the things we can do is to see the best in every member of the team, see the biggest potential opportunity for each of them, and start to demonstrate to them that we see that. Doesn't necessarily mean everyone's going to deliver on it, but demonstrate that we see that opportunity and that potential. It's because when we see it, then we've got to try and help them see it. But it starts very often in leadership, starts with us believing in someone, and that helps them. And I'll talk you through a model in a minute. And then what we have to do is once we believe it, once they start to see it, then we have to get their commitment to start to think and act at a higher level of performance. So this is beyond just delivering on their role. It's about helping them go above and beyond. So they start to think about over delivery. That's really what we want, isn't it? That's how you've all got to where you are today. You've over delivered versus what was expected of you. So you've been recognised and rewarded for a leadership position. Sometimes you think it's a blessing. Other times it feels more like it. Right? And our job then is, once we've got their commitment, to hold them to account to fulfil that commitment. And our job is also then to be a champion for them, not just with them when they're not in the room, when we're with our managers, when we're with our peers, to champion key people in your team, as long as they're delivering on the commitment you've put together. Okay? This is all part of that cycle of how we help them deliver on it. Has anyone heard of the Pygmalion effect? So it's a very well documented effect that is true not only in leadership and in businesses, but also in personal relationships. And what it shows is that it's this psychological phenomenon that describes how our expectations of other people modify their behavior, right? And it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. So our actions towards others, what we think about someone, affects how we act towards them. And then that impacts the beliefs they have about what we think of, right? And because of those beliefs, it changes their actions. So our actions change their beliefs, which change their actions. When we see them doing different stuff, our beliefs change. So then our actions towards them change. It becomes this cycle where, if as leaders you think someone's a really poor performer, your actions towards them are remedial. Well, they're going to need close scrutiny, they're going to need micromanaging, they're going to need whatever, right? That changes their belief about themselves. And that belief changes, so their actions change. And when their actions change, we go, yep, well, that was the case, I'd better get closer. Right? Their beliefs change, their actions change, our belief. So it's this continuing cycle. And depending on how we feel about it and what we decide, our beliefs, which affect our actions toward the other people, we can create this. Now, there are exceptions to every rule. But if you think 80-20, for 80% of your teams, if you treat them as if they're highly capable, have huge potential, and can deliver at the highest level possible, you'll change the way they think about themselves. And you have that expectation. Your actions towards them are supported by that expectation. They will start to change how they think about themselves. They'll start to change what they do. When you see them performing at a higher level, you'll start to believe they're capable of it, and you'll take more action, which stretches them and improves them and improves their belief. If you think about it, right, you'll all have had the same experience throughout your career. Think about where you started and each of the different stages of growth and development. Partly, it will have been because something happened. There might have been a manager you work for, someone else you work with, who said you're capable of more, and started to trust you, give you a bit more responsibility. started to believe in you, maybe an investment in you, starting to change what you believe about yourself. So, oh, maybe I could do that sales management, maybe I could do business management. Maybe it might be just, maybe I can do this job better, maybe I can get a promotion, be a senior person, right? You start to believe yourself, and you're like, okay, so what do I need to do to be that person? And then your boss sees you do it. Oh yeah, well done, Matt. You are able to do that. Great. Let's talk about other things you could do. And they give you more responsibility. And you kind of, oh God, am I capable of doing that? And it's not until you understand this cycle, you recognise the value as a leader you can bring to those relationships to members of your teams to change what they think is possible. That makes sense. That's what this stage is all about. It's about starting to disrupt what your teams think is possible for them. It doesn't mean they're all going to come after your job, but it does mean they're all going to start to think, how do I perform at high level? Yeah. So how do we apply that? There are a number of ways that we apply this stage and that effect, right? So one is about monthly reviews with your team, scheduling monthly reviews. One of the big challenges in roles like ours is you're busy. There's lots of demands on your time. And very often you might find yourself having to cancel certain things, right? And one of the things that is really easy to cancel is an internal meeting. And even easier than that is an internal meeting with a member of your team. So I used to have managers that you'd have a monthly review and the day before they'd bump it. They'd bump it, they just say, I don't want to be okay, we'll catch up next month. And then before you know it, that next month comes around, they're like, oh, I've got this really important meeting, there's VPs on my back, do you mind if we bump it again? Before you know, it's a quarterly review. And then they're like, oh, actually, we're going to catch up at half a year anyway. Should we bump? And you're like 6 months in, and you don't have a review. Now, the thing is, it might seem like that's actually a bit of favour. So it feels like that's a good thing, but it isn't. Because your monthly reviews are your way of continuing investing in your teams and keeping this stuff on the radar so that you are coaching them, developing them and helping them believe in themselves and improve performance. The minute they start to slip, so does performance. It's just inevitable, right? Every time you have a monthly review and you don't cancel it, right? Keep them in the diary, keep them as sacred, right? So when I had teams, I try my level best to make sure that their monthly reviews were the number one priority. Either a field visit with them, or time with them. That was the thing I didn't cancel. I cancelled everything else around it. They stayed in the diary. Contract and agree each time. Just a quick reminder of the contract. You've agreed. You're going to use a coaching style. You're going to help them to maintain focus and help them to deliver on their expectations and whatever else is true for you in that contract, right? Just every time. We agree. Is that okay? Yeah, great. Okay, so today we've got an agenda. There's some items that we cover on a regular basis. Let's just check what we're going to cover. Right. So you've got a structure, and then every quarter, what I used to do was have as part of the quarterly agenda. So you have a monthly agenda, which will be your expectations, delivery, performance, key activities, support required, that kind of stuff. Every quarter, have a personal development plan review. So where are you with your development? Let's make sure that in the quarterly review, which is slightly longer, we allocate some time specifically to talk about your team member and their development. If you don't prioritise it, they won't prioritise it. And talk about your job is being there to challenge them so that they unlock their highest potential. The first time around in that conversation, you might get a bit of vagueness from the other person. You might not really understand what it means. You might have to just revisit that as a recurring theme with people. That's what I found. You have to keep kind of going, actually, you think about the potential. Yeah, great where you're performing today. Where do you think your potential is? What else do you think you're capable of doing? And how do I help you to unlock it? Highest potential possible. I used to have it as a recurring theme. Sometimes people won't get it first pass. They'll need a bit of time just to think about it, and then they can start to. You can look at their expectations document. Think about this part of your expectations and your performance. Where do you think there's high potential? We think about this area, whether it's key clients, whether it's team working, whatever it is. where do you think there's higher potential for you there? Because they won't do it without you. They're not asking themselves, where's this extra 10%, 20% in my performance? If you don't do it, they won't do it. Our job is to help them see that is possible. That stretch, the Pygmalion effect, keep stretching their expectations. In a safe environment, right? So you don't want to tip anybody over the edge. You don't want to stress anybody out. This is about performance. There's two types of stress. There's eustress, just good stress, leaves you feeling energized, leaves you feeling positive. There's distress, which makes you feel kind of a bit helpless and out of control. We want to stay on the eustress side of the equation, positive, high, and energized stress, right? And our job is to hold them accountable through these conversations and be open to their feedback. So we want to encourage that feedback. How are they finding it? What additional support do they need? And if we need to act on it, act on it. And of course, be a positive role model. We've got to prioritize our development so that they see that we're developing ourselves, and then they'll prioritize their development. We can't say you should be prioritizing your development. Have you got a plan if we haven't done the same? And, you're on this course, so you've got good examples of where you're doing that for yourselves. So.
Can I just add on to that last slide, please, Justin?
Yes, go on, Stan.
Just add a comment.
Yeah.
I've just screenshotted that slide. I really love it actually, because our new sales director has just come into the business and she's brilliant and she brings a lot of energy. But something that really resonated with me in the meeting that we had with her is that she told us what she expected from us, but she also told us what we should expect from her and what she's going to do for us. And I think these points you've made, and I think one thing that I think we do well, and Chris especially, is to be consistent with these regular meetings with the team on a fortnightly, a monthly, and then a quarterly basis. But I've never had anybody before say to me, this is what I'm going to do for you, and this is what you can hold me accountable for. And actually it's almost kind of made me feel even more motivated to work harder for her.
Yeah, that's really useful, Stan. Thank you. Yeah, so what you're saying is by taking that approach with your own teams, the impact it has having been on the receiving end. So somebody feels even more motivated when you're making your commitment to them as a leader.
Yeah. So
it's not one-way traffic, it's two-way traffic. Yeah. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Stancy. Very good. So let's just look at what that looks like practically. Anyone heard of Jim Rowan? Yeah. It's a great. So he's not alive anymore, but he was a great. Some of the insights he shared is he's like a business life coach. One of the originals. He taught Tony Robbins and those guys. Loads of different quotes from him. But I love this. The ultimate reason for setting goals is to entice you to become the person it takes to achieve them. Not about the goal. It's about being the sort of person that can achieve those things. And I've repeated that to teams I've led in the past, and that's been quite interesting for them to go. It's not just about the goal, it's about who you become in the process of achieving it. It's a really nice way to think about it, because then when you are having those conversations about trying to challenge and stretch people and what's the next level of performance look like, rather than it's like, oh God, Justin's never satisfied, he's always asking for the next thing, right? It's actually what he's trying to help me do is become better and be more capable. And there's no downside in that for any of us, because you take yourself into those next positions, you create great potential for your future. Okay, so we have a couple of plans that I've used for a long time with for myself, with teams and on programs. So there's two plans that I'm going to talk you through. If you've got one of these already, if you've worked with me in the past, it's a great opportunity to look at it again and reshape it. The first one is your strategic career plan. So this is a tool that you can use, and it's a tool that your teams can use. What it is a plan on a page for your career. So the left-hand side is a blank template. On the right-hand side, there's an example document. And what you go through is you just kind of put your profile at the top, So some of these will be relevant to you. If they're not relevant to you, just leave it blank. So how long have you been in your role or in the company? What's your current position? Job grade may or may not be appropriate. Mobility, you may or may not think that's important. Age, entirely to you, right? And then you go, right, what's important to me in these key areas in my career? What do I want from a career, from different jobs here within my career? What do I want personally? And where does that work and personal kind of overlap? What's important to me in my life generally? What skills do I have and are important to me? So it might be what I have and what I want to develop. What experience have I got? And what does my current job need from me? It's quite interesting, just gets you clear on where you are today. Then you start to think about career interests. What do I think the next job might be? That might be the same job as you're doing today, but just getting better for your teams, for example. What do I think I want midterm? What do I think I want long term? Now, for those people in your teams who are like maybe career salespeople, career videographers, career at what they're doing, it's fine. They might say, actually they might have a senior exec role or whatever, but they want to do the same job, I just want a bigger title. Absolutely fine. Then we start to think about development planning. So there's this principle in development planning in HR circles, they call the 70-20-10 principle. If you think about your job as 100%, 70% of what you do on the job, you learn by doing. So what you do day to day and getting really good at what you do and using every opportunity in your role to develop your skills and get better and better, right? 20% is what you do through the networks that you drive yourself. So it might be a mentor, it might be conversations with your boss, it might be conversations with peers, it might be conversations with somebody else that is in another organization, but you know them and you're kind of talking about how you build your relationships network and strengthen your position in your organization. So that is driven by you, right? This is driven by you, this is driven by you, and then 10% will be through programs or courses, structured development, like this course that we're on, okay? And so you go, right, what are the courses I think I need to help steer me in the right direction? What are the actions I'll take around developing my networks and mentors? And what are the things I'll do within the job that I think are going to help me develop? And then a couple of final things, and then there's an action plan. Dislikes, what don't I like doing? That's important, because that'll steer you away from jobs that you don't want to do. And then finally, on the right-hand side, just an opportunity to capture. What do you think makes you unique? Is it specific for you that if you were going to kind of pitch yourself, your elevator pitch to a prospective boss about, what you're really good at, what are the key elements, so your USPs on the right. And then here, there's a mini action plan. Okay, what's the action I want to take, and when will I do it, and what's the status? First, you got a space there for 6 action items. It's quite a nice way to just stick a plan on a page, think long term. You can think, 5-10 years out. And as long as it's directionally correct, it doesn't have to be absolutely accurate. It just gives you something to start to aim for, which is really important. Okay. Has anyone heard of the reticular activating system? So there's a function in the brain called the reticular activating system. And when you get a new car, or you get a new piece of jewelry, or you get a new item, and all of a sudden you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to order a car for you, about to get you snap things everywhere. Right? That is your reticular activating system going, bing, you've told me what to look out for. I'm now going to find it everywhere I can. Right? When you pull together a plan like this, you activate the reticular activating system. And it starts to go ding, 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 ding. Right, now that I know what the next job is, or the midterm or the long term, what are all the things that I might need to start to work on that line me up for it? And it's the same for your teams. So that's not just the way your brain works, right? So it'll happen without you realizing it. And just going through this structure tunes you in and tunes your team in. And if you don't do it, your brain doesn't know to start to look out for those opportunities that exist. And sometimes they're opportunities you create, right? But until someone says, consider this, or you say to yourself, I need to consider this, you don't spot those opportunities. Okay? So why it's so important, that's why development planning is so important for teams. So that's the strategic piece, okay? And you might find that plan on its own is enough, all right? Second area is what we call development action plan. So you might say, yeah, I'm going to do this once a year and just check in on it. But actually from a development perspective, from having a more tangible, focused, short-term action plan, this is the document that can help in that area if this is more useful. So same thing again, blank template on the left, completed or example template on the right, and you'll get these on your tabs. So then you say, right, what's the goal or desired outcome? What are the development areas? What's my timescale? What are the key actions? Okay. So then you'd say development area. Let's say you wanted to develop a clearer vision and purpose for your organisation. Okay, what's the goal or desired outcome? Create a compelling vision of the future and purpose of our work. Something my team can rally behind and fuel for their motivation. When am I going to do it? I wouldn't recommend doing it 2 years ago. Can't update that with the current date. And then what are the key actions? Okay, I need to understand what the company vision and purpose are, what exists today. Bring the team together for a workshop, agree the actions we'll take to try and bring that to life. So it's a way to really just kind of bring together a plan that works for you. Now, I won't go through these in order, but then you've got connection and performance. So you'll decide what are the areas you want to work on, what are you looking to achieve, when will you do it, and what key actions. Really useful for your teams as well. Specific focus on development and the areas that they want to work on. And you'll find them in your coach toolkit under the heroes tab. So strategic development, and that's continuing professional development plan document, example for each and a template for each. So my recommendation is that you think about crafting your own plan if you haven't got one today. If you have got one, update it. You've got a template and it's better than this, use that. You want to adopt this, adopt this. No kind of specific direction on that, but having a plan and being able to share it with your teams so that you can talk about what it's done for you, so that you can then say to them, and I recommend you do the same, is a really useful way to do it. If you just ask your team to run a development plan and you haven't done your own, it can feel a little bit disconnected for them. Okay. So final task for today is dive into your toolkit, have a quick look at those plans, and then start to kind of map out, right, what will you do to complete them? And if you need to schedule some time, then schedule the time to update the plan, and even if you just kind of get a rough draft together. Go into your toolkit, have a look at the plan, make some decisions, and then just schedule some time to update. Is that all right for you, Stans? Can you follow that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.